digital transformation of quality management. So fundamentals are there, as Alex shared with us, which we much appreciated. And we need to take these fundamentals and we need to apply them in a digital environment. So let's talk about it for a second, and how we can actually transform our quality management systems in a digital environment. So first of all, just like Alex mentioned, so any quality and management standard, basically, when we comply as a company, that is very important for continuous improvement. So we can improve our processes, we can improve customer satisfaction and other activities of ours. Also, it also provides continuity for our businesses. That's also very important. And when we learn from our mistakes, also we will not repeat it again. So that is also part of continuous improvement, which is very important. So since we have been deploying QDMS, our quality and management standard system, in many different industries, we have been learning from companies, from our customers. So why do you need to comply with quality and management standards? Alex addressed these. Actually, I'll just repeat some part of it. So customers are asking for it, basically. I'll give you an example. So if I am making a part for, let's say, planes, I'm making a doorknob for the plane, okay, as simple as. And I like to sell it to Boeing, okay? So I need to comply with ISO 9001. I need to comply with AS 9100. If, as a company, if I'm not complying these standards, Boeing will not buy from me. Airbus will not buy from me. So customers are required. In addition, some of the customers in the market, they are looking for, of course, like to have a reliable supply chain. And these certifications, these quality and compliance, quality and management standard compliance, basically is a proof that you have certain policies and procedures in place. So that's also very important. Since if you have these quality and management standards in place, then you can also have a chance to open up in new markets. You can improve your processes and you can grow your business. These are basically why we comply. So while doing that, of course, companies, they have challenges. We have been observing a lot of challenges in the market. One of them is, for example, we keep hearing from the market, they say a lot of paperwork that you need to follow up, for example, you need to manage. Could be any standard. So you need to have policies and procedures in place. You need to document it. Just like Alex mentioned earlier, everything has to be documented, has to be evidence-based. So how am I going to actually have the evidence? It needs to be written. I need to have a record. So that's what they mean by paperwork. Also, since you are busy with your operations on day-to-day basis, you may actually lose sight of your standards sometimes. That may be another challenge. And sometimes these manual work of complying is kind of challenging for companies. However, the good news is, since we are in digital age, we have a lot of solutions for these kind of challenges. If you are complying with, let's say, ISO or any other standard in a digital environment, first of all, you don't need paper anymore. You can digitize all your activities. You can manage your documentation, as in policies, procedures, SOPs, forms, in a digital environment with no need of paper. You can even fill up those forms in a digital environment, right? So you don't have to generate paper on a daily basis. Also, updates are simplified. Everything is digital, as we all know it. Audits are very important. When I say audits, I mean audits internally. I may run audits internally in my company, sales audits, production department, production audits, purchasing department, in a way that we are making sure that we are following policies and procedures in place. Or also, I may be audited by ISO. I may be audited by FDA, for example. So since my documents, my records, my quality management and compliance management system is digital, these audit experience become much easier than before. Also, the administrative burden of maintaining the quality management system is actually reduces. It's reduced by these by the fact that we are in digital age, and the software like QDMS can actually make things much easier. So having said that, we put together a framework. We call this quality management framework in a proactive sense. Okay, so the correct wording is actually proactive quality management framework. We put this together because we've been talking with companies, we've been talking with customers. As I mentioned, as for QDMS, as I mentioned before, we have deployed it more than 1,000 times, and we have more than 1 million customers, and these numbers are increasing. So we are learning a lot of things from our customers. So when we look at this framework, the first thing is assurance, the system that you have in place. For example, Alex mentioned ISO 9001. That is the quality assurance system. That is the system that we need to follow. If you are complying with something else other than ISO, let's say you are complying with AS 9100, you are in aerospace industry, let's say, then you have these quality management system in place. So that system basically drives the business and the quality management system. That is how it is. There may be other systems, other requirements. For example, in medical device industry, which is a heavily regulated industry, or let's say food industry, there are other quality management systems in place. We call this assurance piece. Other piece is control. So we do quality control on daily basis, and these controls may be when you are buying, when you're receiving raw material, for example, when you're doing production, when you're doing processing, or after production, after processing, for example, before shipping. So there are different quality control points that we see in different companies, right? So that is the quality control piece. So typically, quality assurance dictates quality control. So all the quality control pieces needs to be talking to the quality assurance system. So they are not independent from each other. They are interacting both ways. Okay. And the other piece is predictive quality. So yes, we are in digital age. Yes, I can digitize all my policies, procedures, SOPs, and forms. I can run my quality management system digitally, but I can take it further in digital age. So with smart sensors, I can remotely monitor my machinery. I can remotely monitor my environment, temperature, vibration, humidity. I can monitor all these, and I can take action before anything happens. So if something is out of range, if something is, let's say, temperature is out of, let's say I'm a food company, I have industrial refrigerators, and temperature is out of range, either too hot, too cold, something is wrong. It can trigger automatic work order. It can trigger automatic notification. It can trigger automatic corrective action if necessary, part of our quality management framework. We call it proactive quality management framework. So this framework basically ongoing, and it runs on daily basis, and that's what we follow simply. And as to what we do as Bimser International, each piece that I mentioned, assurance, control, as well as predictive quality, we can address all these with our software products, and each of these software products are talking to Acumatica. So we are talking about an integrated management system in a digital environment, which is very, very important. And that's the benefit, basically. We get rid of paper. We become more proactive. We can comply all these quality management systems, starting from ISO to another system, or regulations such as FDA, for example. So I can comply these in a digital environment, less paper. I can be more proactive. And also, as a result of this, naturally, I'll have continuous improvement and I'll perform better. That is where it goes, simply. These are the benefits that we have been talking about. As for the quality management standards, there are many of them in the marketplace. So the reason we started with ISO 9001 is because ISO 9001 is the holy grail of all the quality management systems. So ISO 9001 is always the foundation. And then it goes more specific. So automotive industry, they have their own ISO. Yes, ISO 9001 standards are there. On top of it, they put certain standards just for automotive industry. Same thing for aviation, aerospace. When we say AS 9100, that's actually coming from ISO 9001. The foundation is ISO 9001. On top of it, they put certain requirements for aerospace industry, additional safety measures, additional control measures, and they are very structured about this, for example. Construction industry, we see many different industries and many different standards that we see that they follow. ISO 17025 for calibration standards is another one, for example, we see in construction. Food industry, they have their own standards such as HQF, mostly we see it in North America. BRC, we see it in North America as well as Europe and other parts of the world. For example, there's ISO 22000. So these are other standards that we see in the marketplace. Healthcare, nowadays we talk about healthcare a lot. So as we have been hearing, listening news, for example, a drug, for example, anything that we manufacture, it needs to be FDA approved. So I need to follow FDA's regulations at a company if I'm producing anything about healthcare. Then maybe a pharma related, maybe I'm making medicine, maybe I'm making medical device, for example. for healthcare industry. So that needs to follow the FDA's regulations. That is very important. So that touches to the CFR Part 11 piece for the software industry, which our products are actually compliant with. And there are many other standards. These are still some of them. There are many. However, the important thing is the foundation is ISO 9001, and it goes to more industry-specific standards, basically coming from ISO 9001 towards those industries, whichever we are talking about. So let's talk about QDMS a little bit, and then we'll also show you live how QDMS can help companies comply with various quality management systems, and how QDMS is interacting, talking, integrated with Acumatica. Basically, we'll also address that as well in this webinar, which is very important. So QDMS is a quality, risk, audit, and compliance management software, and that's also available in Acumatica marketplace. That's a Acumatica certified solution. We just actually got recertification for 2019 R2, but it hasn't reflected on the page yet. So just a side note. So as for the digital transformation of quality management, which I was referring earlier, so QDMS is talking to smart sensors, it's talking to manufacturing execution systems, talking to CRM systems, talking to Acumatica ERP system, for example, to push and pull data. The idea is this: if any company, if any of the corporations that we are working with have these systems in place, we can talk to these systems, and customers can have integrated management system, and they can avoid double entry. That is the beauty about it. So one system talks to another one talks to the other one, so you can have that integrated system, and you can follow up what is going on. As for smart sensors, as I mentioned earlier, anything about temperature, vibration, humidity, noise, light, all these things can be actually remotely monitored by smart sensors right now. They're not expensive, they're very easy to use, and QDMS is integrated with many different sensors, and it doesn't really matter what you have. These systems, these sensors come with software already, so we can easily integrate, and you can actually pull and push data. And the idea is that in the concept of quality management, if there is a need for corrective action, which leads to the continuous improvement, you can manage it. Same thing with manufacturing execution systems, CRM, as well as Acumatica ERP. We have already integrated. We are already integrated with Acumatica. We have these in place, and we can do any other integration when necessary for the project. QDMS is designed to run any quality management standard, basically, starting from ISO to SQF and BRC. System is very flexible. It's a web-based structure, architecture, just like Acumatica. Once we deploy it, you can access it from anywhere. That's a great advantage, especially nowadays. Most of us, we are working from home. We are working remotely, and having that web-based architecture, being able to access the system wherever you are, is a great advantage nowadays. Also, it has a lot of security features. As I mentioned earlier, the system is FDA CFR Part 11 compliant, QDMS. So we put in place a lot of security features in that sense as well. And there is also mobile application available. QDMS works on cloud and on-premise servers, just like Acumatica. We can deploy anywhere, and you can access the system wherever you are via web browser or mobile app that we have available. So QDMS and Acumatica, they work very well together technologically and strategically. One of the advantages of QDMS is that's modular. We have more than 30 modules available right now. As I mentioned earlier, QDMS has been around since 1998. That's a very, very mature system. We have seen many different industries, many different customers complying with many different standards. That is our advantage on our belt. And of course, from 1998 to now, we have been developing our product by listening to our customers, by addressing their requirements, by understanding how they are complying with various quality management systems, as well as compliance requirements in different industries. So, having said that, we have more than 30 modules available. These are major modules that I put on the screen. So when we offer QDMS, we are not trying to sell entire system. We talk to our customers, with our partners, we are channel only. So we try to understand what they do, what they comply, how they comply, and what is their challenge. These are three discovery questions we always ask. What do you comply? How do you comply? What is your challenge? So once we understand the challenge, we can address with our modules. And we show these modules to quality managers. Basically, they can pick and choose what they need. This is the flexibility that we offer. That's easier to invest, easier to learn, easier to sell, right? Internally, that's another challenge most of the time in software industry. And you can go live pretty quickly. There is control document management module. This is the backbone. So as we talk about the management systems before, and also in the scope of ISO 9001, Alex also mentioned, documentation is the key, basically. I call it the backbone of any quality management system, because if I don't have my written policies, procedures, SOPs are in place, then what do I have? It's just hearsay. You are doing one thing today, and you are doing another thing, the same thing in a different way. There is no standard. So having that control document management is very important. So with this module, you can manage your policies and procedures. And after my presentation, I'll hand it over to Sam, our software engineer, one of our engineers in our engineering team, and he'll show you how actually control document manager module runs. That is what we like to show today. And incoming webinars every Monday, we'll talk about other modules and other quality management systems. There is customer complaint module available. So just like Alex mentioned earlier, our expert speaker today, so getting feedback is very important. So for me to improve my processes and my business and my product, I need to get feedback. So how do I get the feedback? I get the feedback from my customers, from my team members, right? From my employees, from my vendors. So I need to have that engagement to get the feedback. So this customer complaint module is very important in that sense. I can get internal and external feedback. This feedback doesn't have to be complaint, actually. It can be a feedback. It can be a positive feedback, can be a negative feedback, which may be the complaint, right? So either way, I can get feedback and I can take action, as in corrective action, for continuous improvement. Another module that we have is called, for example, suggestion module. That is to get internal suggestions from my team members, from our, from within our company, to get some feedback to improve some of our operations, for example. Audit management module is also important to get feedback. I can do audits internally, as I mentioned earlier. We can do cross auditing, sales audits, purchasing audits, production department, for example, to making sure that policies and procedures in place are followed, and if there is any way to improve anything, for example. So in that sense, audit management module is also very important. Surveys, another of them, right? We all do surveys at least once in a year, right? To get, hear from our customers, basically, So in that sense, we also put together a survey module where you can put together your surveys towards your customers, towards your team members, for example, your vendors, and you can get the feedback right away, along with statistics, along with results and analysis, which is very important for continuous improvement. Also, we have calibration module. We have risk management modules available. So nowadays we have coronavirus crisis, right? We have this difficulty right now. So one of the things that we have noticed is that, so there is going to be life before coronavirus, before COVID-19, and business life after COVID-19, right? So one of the things that we have been seeing is that risk management has been missing in the market, right? So in that sense, having these risk management modules are very important, like thinking about health and safety risk assessment, for example. Okay, let's say you are a manufacturer, coming up with certain scenarios, putting together certain plans in place with this module, for example. And if that happens, God forbid, then you just like pressing the button, then you put those policies and procedures in place and everyone follows. Of course, you need to do the rehearsals, right? You have to do the practice, of course. And we have also a module for that as well, that you can record you can schedule your risk-based scenarios, your plans. If something happens, what are you going to do? Okay, if something happens, if there is flooding, what are you going to do? If there is fire, what are you going to do? If there is, a contagious disease, what are you going to do? These are all disaster scenarios, but this is how you're going to manage the risk assessment, basically. What if that happens? What is your plan B? So we put together various risk assessment modules: environment, health and safety, IT assets risk management, as well as process risk management. And we have other modules on the right side, such as incident management. Something happened in let's say organization, someone falls, someone hurts himself, herself. So what happened? Making the investigation, finding the root causes, and understanding what really happened, and sharing the results. This is what happened. Because of this reason, this team member actually fell. He wasn't wearing his work boots, for example, work shoes. So from now on, everyone has to pay attention for this. That's maybe the lesson learned, for example, after that incident management report. And we have many more modules available for QDMS, and these are just measure of them. And we believe life after COVID-19, in this sense, these modules, every single one of them, is going to be very, very helpful for companies, more than before. I mean, QDMS is a proven system. We have more than 1,000 customers, more than 1 million users already. However, in coming days, it's going to be even more helpful for many different organizations. That's what we believe. Let's talk about some use cases, and then I'll hand it over to Sam. So one of the food companies that we are working with, for example, they are compliant with ISO, SQF, BRC, halal, and kosher. They have about more than 1,000 employees. They are still using QDMS for these compliance purposes. So they have challenge. They had actually many different challenges. Some of them actually, to list, having a lot of paper-based archive, right? So they were basically compliant with ISO, SQF, BRC, halal, and kosher on paper, literally. So they had a really huge archive on paper-based. So something, basically, you need to pull up a policy procedure. You need to go to archive to pull it. That's the challenge. Very time-consuming. You can misplace it. You can lose it easily. Also difficult to follow the policies and procedures on daily basis. It's because it's hard to locate them most of the time. Also, when ISO auditor comes, it is difficult to prove it to the auditor that you're actually following policies and procedures, because you need to go to archive all the time, pull up the documentation, you need to show it. This was very challenging for them. So once we deployed QDMS for this organization, they had the chance to digitize all their documentation as to policies and procedures. And they had multiple locations, they still have. And right now they have the chance to access their documents, their data, wherever they are. Also, since all these policies and procedures digitized, no matter who is running the quality management system, QDMS is there. So they had a chance to create corporate memory in that organization. That was an example in food and snack industry, for example. Another one is in healthcare. As I mentioned earlier, healthcare is a heavily regulated industry. Okay, not to mention FDA, not to mention GMP. And by the way, we'll talk about GMP, good manufacturing practices, next Monday. So you're invited. So if you're in the industry, you need to comply with GMP, various ISO standards. If you are in the medical device industry, for example, ISO 13485 is a must, for instance. Anyway, so this company, they have more than 500 employees. So they had hard time passing the audits as to ISO, GMP, and FDA. They had hard time showing their activities that they are following the standards. Also, they had hard time also taking corrective actions and recording them for continuous improvement, because the documentation was loose. So they were health paper, health Excel sheets, Word files, but it was challenging for them to keep everything together in one system, basically. So once we deployed QDMS, they started to manage their policies and procedures in digital environment. So anytime that they make any revision in the documentation that they have as to policies, for example, the notification goes to their team members automatically. So you send the notification to your team members, and they get the memo. There is no such thing as, I never get the memo. I know you get it. I know you read it. So you can see all these tracing in QDMS. That is also very important for them. They started to have easier audit experience, and also they started to also have more and more corrective actions as to continuous improvement. So these are some of the findings that actually we note during this project. There's a company in healthcare industry, more than 500 employees and multiple locations.